NPT Education here, coming at you with episode 4 of Leading in a New Frontier. In this episode, we talk about the critical role veteran principals serve in the lives of new principals. In other words, what it means to serve as a mentor. We'll also delve a little deeper into the middle school model and what we are anticipating the fall will bring. And lastly, this idea of embracing the moment and recognizing things that really excite us about the great unknown. Sit back, enjoy, and thanks again for listening and watching. Take care. So, put your mentoring hats on for a moment. Think of a new principal coming into this situation. What advice would you give him or her?
Yeah, I mean, my first piece of advice would just be stay in touch with your staff. Don't don't just know what platform they're putting their lessons on. Know how their family's doing. Know how they personally are or aren't reacting to what's going on. Know what they need. I think that that's harder as a first year principal, but even a first year principal, we're 7 months in, we're 8 months in. They know their staff for the most part, and like Pete said earlier, with your runners, your joggers, your different types of people, this is this is individualized leadership time, right? So there's moments where we need to lead the whole school, but this has made it even more individualized because we know they're all home alone. So you're always telling teachers, I just differentiate for that kid, or see the good in that kid and figure out how to work through it, and try something different with that kid. But we got to do the same thing in our leadership. So, no, my number one piece of advice to new principals would be know your people, talk to your people, and lead them as individuals as much as possible, even though you're far away from them, which is the challenge. But it's not, with so much technology, you can still overcome it.
Cool. Pete?
Yeah, ditto on what Timmy just said. And I'm going to add to that. When you're leading, communicate honestly and openly. And as a new principal, when you're overwhelmed, it's okay to say, I'm overwhelmed. Or like Timmy had said earlier, I don't know the answer, but I read a lot, I think about a lot, and I'm gonna figure it out for you. When you're sad, be sad. I think that's how you build trust, is by being your honest self and communicating via your honest self. I think the trap that first year principals get into, or first year teachers, first year leaders get into, is that Atlas effect, where I have to shoulder everyone for everybody and be strong every second because that's what people need from me. No, people need to see that you're human because it allows them to be human with you, and that's the piece that Timmy just touched on. And it's bold and it's vulnerable for new principals, but it's so important because it's liberating, it's healthy, and it's good for you and your entire team. Let them see you, let them see you sweat, let them see you cry, and let them see you succeed too. And that's how you get in to do this whole thing together.
So one of the last questions I have, and it kind of goes back to, well, really everything we're talking about in terms of this idea of leading in the new frontier. Have either one of you thought? I mean, Timmy, you kind of alluded to this in terms of your comments about the higher ed coming up with different options for what the fall is going to look like. Think of the middle school schedule for a moment in what it looks like under normal circumstances. Have you given it any thought about what a hybrid model could potentially look at? Like, what is developmentally appropriate for a middle schooler? Any thoughts about that?
Well, I think you're asking the right question when you say what is developmentally appropriate, right? But I also think that sort of in the hierarchy of needs, our next step is not going to be based on that. It's going to be based on what's safe, right? So we're gonna get a schedule. We're gonna get a model of schooling that whoever, the governor, the president, the CDC, I don't know, the commissioner, someone's going to deem something as this is safe, so go do it. And then within that, we're going to have to figure out how to make it developmentally appropriate. But yeah, I mean, I think there is. I only think there's three models. One of them has a lot. Well, all of them have a lot of gray, but we're either going to be in school the way we know, and maybe masked up, maybe more lunches so less kids are in the caf. I don't know, but we're all in school, or we're going to be all online. And if we're all online, I'm extremely proud of how my school has done online. I know your guys' schools have been doing great, but I still think it's going to look really different in the fall. I mean, we are not running a live schedule every day. We are really just doing on-demand online learning that kids can log into at a time that works for them. I do think that if we're all online, just the world will require us to follow a schedule. I don't necessarily think it'll be a 7.5 day schedule at home of live teaching, but I do think it'll be 3, 4, 4.5, whatever hours a day where we have to come up with a schedule and kids actually sign into live classes, which that's going to be the big difference. And then the hybrid model, which is probably where we'll land. The simplest one is half your kids come one day, half your kids come the next. So staff is always in the building. This allows us to social distance better. It allows us to keep kids more separate, allows us to have smaller lunches and all those things. But they're still going to have to do something the next day when they're home. And when they're home, it's going to have to be more than homework. That's one of the things we've talked about with our teachers is, it's not just going to be like, oh, you got to do 20 minutes tomorrow. Like, no, they're going to have to do a full school day tomorrow. So they're going to have very deep practice moments or deep projects or deep critical thinking, whatever it is. And it could be half and half, but recently I told my staff we could get 1/5 of our kids on Monday, 1/5 on Tuesday, 1/5 on Wednesday, because it could be that we need to go down that much in class size in order to socially distance. So those are the three options I see the most. Everybody's at school, everybody's home, but the schedule looks different, or we're some mix of the two in a hybrid model. And I think we need to be thinking about all of it.
I think Timmy said it best, and that's what we're preparing for too. And I also think it's important to empower those that have done this. I mean, I know at your schools it may have been similar, and our school certainly was this way. That I remember the day on March 12th, we had a regular day of school. On March 13th, nobody showed up, and we had a weekend to figure out how we were going to build it. And guess what? We built it. Our teachers and students can rise, and we did it. And we've all seen those those Facebook messages that have pumped up the education world, and they're true. They're true. Our teachers were given 24 hours to revamp education, and our teachers and our principals, they pulled it off. So Timmy's right. I think the model might look a little bit different, but I've got tremendous confidence in both the kids and in the staff to make it work in the fall, because we made it work in 48 hours. We pulled it together while governments couldn't, some businesses couldn't, some corporations couldn't.
It was unbelievable.
Man, our teachers and kids, we pulled it off. So we're gonna pull it off again, and I can say that and really mean it. We're gonna pull it off. It's just a matter of working the problem, and and not making the problem worse by throwing guesswork or assumption at it. We're gonna work that problem when the problem comes to us, and we're gonna work it out well, because we have, and we're not just guessing on that anymore. So I think Timmy's setup of the different logistics makes sense. We're doing the same thing in our school, and I'm bubbling with confidence, because I think we're just gonna, whatever they throw at us, man, education's gonna figure it out. It's the rest of those organizations that are gonna have to take some lessons from us.
Yeah, I hate to throw shade, right? But like, it was funny watching colleges like add their spring break and then like give students another week off while we figure this out. And it was like professors had like 2 to 3 weeks to figure out how to lead 20-year-olds online. And like you said, Pete, like public ed had 24, 48 hours and we were up and running. It was truly remarkable.
First of all, before we get into the lessons, I just want to take a moment to recognize the passion in both Timmy's and Pete's voice and body language. I mean, it speaks to who they are as leaders. So in that section, there were so many great leadership strategies. I want to start by recognizing the importance of subscribing to differentiated leadership. ultimately, what that's talking about is individualizing your leadership. What that really means to me is this idea that you know each of your staff members so well you can provide them with explicit feedback. That has everything to do with this idea of building positive, trusting relationships. Simply put, you got to know your staff. Also, empower them, rely on them. Avoid this idea of you having to be the atlas. As you heard from Pete, we are in this together. You got to rely on others and really think about delegating. Lastly, you can't get stuck in the trenches. Really focus on the future. You've got to, yes, manage the now, but work through the problems, break them down into manageable chunks. Don't get stuck in the mud. And lastly, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the importance of addressing the social emotional needs of our students, of our teachers. It's all about making sure they're able to access the learning. And that has everything to do with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Great, great stuff. Let's sit back and enjoy the last clip of episode 4. As a process observer here, what's awesome is to listen to the two of you talk about the challenges associated with this experience, but also you can tell in the manner in which you're talking about it, the enthusiasm and the excitement in which you lead, and it's truly the ultimate compliment to the both of you as educational leaders. Truly. That being said, I would throw it out to the two of you before I wrap up with just a quick closing comment. Any concluding thoughts that you would want to share with the audience or those members listening?
Yeah, I close with this, and that's people will rise. Believe in your people. People are capable of so much. When you stop and think about it, there is nothing. There's nothing um, that people that we use that people haven't created. Everything from your iPhone to your computer to the Zoom has come from the human capacity. And so the human capacity is incredible. It is limitless. So not only should we utilize that resource, but we should believe in that resource, and we should rest easy knowing that people will rise, and people are going to rise in education. They've done it over this time. They're going to continue to do it. And that's the big takeaway is to not forget that humanity, that if you give to humanity and you give to your people, they're going to give back to you. And that rising tide is going to elevate all boats, man. And people will rise and come through this. We've been doing it for centuries. We're going to do it again. And it's because of the human heart and the human experience. And if there's one thing that is going to come out of this, it's the value of that human experience, because we've missed it so much. I hope that we cherish it when we get to come out of here. I mean, I can't wait to see the two of you. I'm going to give you a big old bear hug, and we're going to be back together doing this in person. And I'm going to cherish and relish it in a way that I hadn't before, because we're going to come out of this better because of who we are as human beings.
True that.
Awesome.
Well said.
Well said, Pete. I think my last thought would be one way to make this simple is just pick two, right? So every day, pick two staff members that you're not sure how it's going, or you are sure and you know it's not the easiest thing, and reach out. Every day, pick two kids that you miss, that you had a relationship with, and reach out, even if it's just an email. And lastly, pick two. Make sure you pick two new ideas to at least get into your brain to start thinking about the next steps so that you are leading for the future. So pick two adults, pick two students, pick two ideas, spend some time on all 6 of those things every day. And I think that'll really help drive your thinking forward and your school forward. Because Pete's right, we're going to be okay. And what we've pulled off already is unbelievable. But as leaders, we got to keep moving and we got to keep thinking. So pick two, and it'll help every day feel better for even you.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and your amazing thoughts. Truly appreciate it. Hope you all have a great day. In terms of the audience, Thank you for listening. This is NPT Education. Be on the lookout for future interviews. I would love to have the gentleman back to talk about more concrete plans in terms of what they are doing to address the fall leading in a new frontier.
All right. Man, I absolutely love that passion in Pete's voice and that message of we will rise to the occasion, believe in humanity, especially in this period of time of the last 2 weeks we've had with all of the social unrest, the tragic and horrific loss of George Floyd. I mean, we truly need this message to be spread throughout. Um, I love that idea of cherishing and relishing the moments when we're together. After all, we are social beings, and so much of the reasons why we are in education are associated with that simple fact that we want to be together. We want to impact society as a unit. So great comments, Pete. And wrapping things up, I have to recognize the pick two metaphor, if you will, that Timmy shared. What a great idea to keep yourself motivated. Remember to pick two staff, two students to reach out to, and to explore two new ideas daily. Great advice. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And that wraps up our 4-part interview with Pete Gillen and Timmy Allen. Gentlemen, thank you so much for sitting with me and hashing out leading in a new frontier. Audience participants, hope you enjoyed this experience. Please go to our website, check out NPT Education, see what we offer in terms of mentoring services. Also found on the link will be a PDF worksheet of sorts, which will help you synthesize all of the information you heard in the last 4 episodes. Please go download that, check that out, use that to your advantage. Remember, we're in it together. Thanks again so much, everybody.